So like most Jews, I was raised believing that the Jewish National Fund was a really good thing. It was about planting trees and helping Israel thrive. There's a photograph of me when I was 4 years old having the ambassador to Israel put a quarter in one of those JNF boxes. The Jewish National Fund promotes itself as the ideal charity, as creating what the Hebrew word is tzedakah, which roughly translates as charity, but it also has connotations of justice and ethics. Claiming to promote tzedakah, the Jewish National Fund has a whole bunch of ways that Jews can donate to celebrate any major transition, births and graduations and marriages and bar mitzvahs and deaths. And you can spend up to $900 planting trees in Israel and redeeming the land of Israel and making the desert bloom, according to their website.
The Jewish National Fund, which began in 1901 in Canada in 1910, was tied into the political project of Zionism. Had as the intent of colonizing historic Palestine on behalf of a European Jewish colonial movement.
The shocking reality, though, behind the so-called tzedakah of the JNF is that from its inception, the JNF has played a central role in the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from their land, and it continues to do that. The JNF now directly controls 13% of all the land of Israel, all of which, of course, is reserved for Jews only. It's an apartheid system.
I was born in the village of Beit Nuba. The village of Beit Nuba was about halfway between Jaffa and Jerusalem. And village of Beit Nuba, together with two neighboring villages, Amwas and Yalu, were villages, population each about 2,500 people at that time. These three villages were close to the main street between Jaffa and Jerusalem. Well, in 1967, the Israeli armed forces attacked the West Bank, which was under Jordanian control.
The Palestinians living in these villages were driven from their homes in '67 war, even though they were peaceful. There was no violence. There was no military from within these villages. But about 5,000 to 10,000 Palestinians were driven from their homes.
These three villages were occupied without a single shot being fired in these villages, and they were then totally demolished and dynamited by the Israeli army. Well, Canada Park was built on the ruins of these three villages. And this is, by definition, the destruction of these villages was a war crime.
JNF Canada established Canada Park. They raised over $15 million from Canadians, including Diefenbaker and the city of Ottawa and people like that, to create this beautiful park in what they called Israel. In fact, it's in the occupied West Bank.
Revenue Canada provides the JNF with charitable status, which means that donations that individuals make to the JNF Canada are tax deductible. So that's depends on one's tax bracket, but up to about a third, maybe even as high as 40% in some cases, of donations are underwritten or subsidized by the Canadian taxpayer. And it's something that's been supported by Canadian politicians and Canadian tax policy for the past 4 or 5 decades. The current government has made it basically illegal for Canadians to support a vast array of Palestinian charitable organizations. It's not a matter of them not having charitable status and not being able to write tax deductions, but it's simply illegal to support these organizations.
And I have been writing to the government, to the Prime Ministers of Canada, saying how can that be a charitable fund, the JNF, building picnic areas on ruins of people's homes. A few months later I write, what is the outcome of the assessment? And they say, well, it's confidential and we cannot tell you. And this has gone on since 1978.
You have another example in 2007 where Lebanese-Canadian Ron Saba challenged the Revenue Canada for their charitable status for the JNF and the fact that it contravenes Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and supports discrimination, which is should be illegal in Canada. I think the campaign around the JNF Canada is important not only in terms of dealing with the history of JNF's role in the dispossession of Palestinians, but also about documenting Canada's complicity with Israel's dispossession of Palestinians and the double standards within Canada on these issues, where it's okay to support Israeli charities even if they're doing things contrary to international law, but on the other hand it's illegal or we're not allowed to support Palestinian charities.
This year, Independent Jewish Voices is launching a campaign to challenge the JNF. Our goals are to educate people, both Jews and non-Jews, about the real agenda of the JNF. We're hoping to urge people who rent venues for these Negev galas to refuse to do that. We're hoping to get people who are nominated for honors to refuse to accept these honors. We're hoping to make it embarrassing to donate to the JNF, that Jews will stop doing it. We're going to be offering Jews lots of other good charitable options, for example, the New Israel Fund or the Zatoun Trees for Life program, to celebrate their events. It should not be on the backs and on the blood of Palestinian people.